But hi everyone, welcome to today's Closer Look. Really excited to have you all of you here with us today. I am Kelly Wilson. I'm WCN's Director of Donor Engagement, and I'm super excited about today's Closer Look. Before I began my work with WCN, I spent about 20 years in the environmental education field, so it's something that's very close to my heart. Giving children the opportunity to explore, understand, and appreciate all the living things around them has always been something that I strongly believe in. Today, we will have two of our amazing partners, Snow Leopard Conservancy and Proyecto Tití, here to talk about the vast and inclusive programs that they are running to do just that. They truly bring home an appreciation and understanding of the natural world and help foster goodwill that will stand for generations to come. Little housekeeping. So today, with our Closer Look, we really want it to be interactive after we hear from our partners. So please put your questions in the chat, put them in the Q&A, and we'll do our best to get to all of them. But moving right along, we have Ashleigh Lutz-Nelson, who has recently taken over the Executive Director role for Snow Leopard Conservancy. She has an amazing career in the zoo field, which allowed her to focus on building collaboration between ex situ and in situ wildcat conservation projects, meaning both in the field and in captivity. Ashleigh now brings her 20 years of wildlife conservation experience for the snow leopards and for Snow Leopard Conservancy. We also have Rosamira Guillen, who's a proud Colombian who's been Proyecto Tití's director since 2008. Under her leadership, Proyecto Tití has gotten cottontops classified as critically endangered species, protected over 13,000 acres of forest, and created a national program for cottontop conservation and expanded Proyecto's Tití community and education programs. Whenever somebody asks me who's doing good education work in this space, these are two of the programs that I point them to. So you're in for a real treat today. Ashleigh, I'm going to toss it over to you and let you kick us off.
Thank you so much, Kelly. Let me share my screen. Bear with me for just a moment. Okay, can everybody see that okay? Great. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today, and of course for WCN for bringing us together. I'm so excited to talk to you about how SLC is engaging kids in conservation to help one of the most elusive and majestic of the big cats, the snow leopard. And next, we'll hear about the cutest little monkey in the world from Rosamira and how her amazing team at Proyecto Tití is working very hard to save cotton-top tamarins by engaging kids in conservation. So let's head off to Asia first. Snow leopards live in one of the most rugged, remote, harsh landscapes in the world, as pictured here. This is Annapurna, Nepal, in the Himalaya. Often referred to as the roof of the world because these altitudes are nearly as the highest they can go, including Mount Everest and several other peaks like Annapurna 1 and 2. And these cats absolutely thrive in this environment. Snow leopards are very rare here. There are only estimated 3,000 to 7,000 wild snow leopards left, and they are considered an apex predator in this area, responsible for the health and balance and well-being of this ecosystem, which is providing vital resources to millions of people downstream by providing glacial fresh water. So it's a very important ecosystem and all of its components. Snow leopards are perfectly adapted to living in this environment. If you look at their camouflage against the rocks, they completely blend in. They have large snowshoe feet and very thick fur to survive these harsh temperatures, and that tail is about the length of the size of their body, allowing them to balance and gracefully bound along these rugged cliff sides, hunting for prey such as blue sheep, as you see here, which are almost as equally as agile as snow leopards. Also sharing these landscapes are agropastoralist herding communities, and they have lived in this area for centuries. It is a very remote landscape, and this picture here is Narfu, which takes 3 days journey to get from any road access up to where these villages are. So these communities rely completely on their livestock, such as mules, yaks, goats, and sheep, for their primary livelihood. As you see the mules here carrying vital food and supplies to these very remote villages. They also rely on their livestock for food, so milk products that make butter and cheese and meat, and then yak hair is used to make parts of their enclosures. So they do utilize their livestock for everything. So the problem is when livestock are in unprotected enclosures and they make easy targets for snow leopards, which can lead to potential conflicts. And this happens when a snow leopard enters an enclosure and kills livestock. And unfortunately, sometimes this results in retributive killing towards snow leopards. So this can be, detrimental to mothers and cubs, particularly because they stay in home ranges while mothers are feeding growing cubs and teaching them how to hunt. So our work really centers around preventing this conflict and working with our partners to work with local communities on solutions by understanding what their current depredation is, and then offering solutions such as predator-proof corrals, like you see here on the left side, to keep livestock and snow leopards safe, as well as things like fox lights, which is an electronic light deterrent, which keeps the predators completely away from the livestock and promotes coexistence and helps improve the herders' lives by protecting their livestock. So herding family, we work directly with local communities, the herders, the kids, their families, on promoting these useful techniques to keep their livestock safe. And these traditional practices are passed down through generations. So by working with the kids and promoting these techniques that promote coexistence and sustainability, it will really help ensure a really good future for these families. So Snow Leopard Conservancy works to facilitate the Land of the Snow Leopard Network, which is largely based on education programs and involving the cultural and spiritual significance of snow leopards. In many traditional cultures and faiths in Central Asia, snow leopards are a sacred species. So by reviving their traditional cultures, we are also reinvigorating snow leopards as a sacred species. And the amazing indigenous culture practitioners you see here, who are Buddhist lamas, sacred site guardians, and shaman, are working directly with their communities and kids to promote conservation of snow leopards and other biodiversity. Norbu Lama here in the Buryat Republic of Russia works with kids to help bring the understanding of the interconnectedness and interdependence of all nature in the game you see here. This is the Web of Life game, and showing how every critical part of the ecosystem is imperative for everyone's survival. And Norbu also works to protect in addition to working with the kids, he's working hard with government to protect multiple areas in this region so that they become large protected areas for all wildlife. Forgive me for this picture not being super clear, but it's a really amazing picture I wanted to share with you. This is Zhakarpul Rambakov, and he's a sacred site guardian in the Talas region of Kyrgyzstan. And Zhakarpul is an extraordinary individual. He got the idea to start this Elders and Youth program in Kyrgyzstan, which has visited over 35 schools, engaging over 1,000 kids on reinvigorating traditional knowledge and the amazing regional cultures and faiths that was suppressed, unfortunately, for many of these communities for so long under the Soviet era. So by reinvigorating their faith, it's also reinvigorating snow leopards as a sacred species. And so Zhakarpul has done an amazing job with this program, engaging elders and youth and traveling all over Kyrgyzstan. Over in Tajikistan, our partner Korban Alamshov has done a great job setting up an annual Snow Leopard Day festival to get kids excited about conservation and the species that they share their environment with. So here you see there's traditional dance, art, there's folk dances, there are plays, all sorts of activities that make conservation very fun, engaging kids of all ages and their families directly in conservation. And this is creating local advocacy for species in these areas. You can see they take to the streets to do a parade and really promote lots of different species. You have a Pallas cat represented here, as well as a snow leopard and different ungulate species. So they're doing a great job to promote this in all the areas. But this Snow Leopard Festival has actually expanded to all 5 of these Land of Snow Leopard regions, really engaging the youth to become activists and offering inspiration and through fun activities. I love this picture so much. This is showing self-expression. One of the things I love about these festivals is it really allows kids to have personal expression and do art and singing and get them super involved in making conservation a lot of fun. The art contest really highlights the intersection of culture in conservation. Here on the left-hand side, this is a picture of a snow leopard wearing traditional wear from Kyrgyzstan. And then on the right-hand side, I think this picture is important because empathy for snow leopards and the threats that they face through human wildlife conflict and from poaching. We get so many cultural art submissions, and it really shows the reverence that these kids have for snow leopards. And it's a highlight that we look forward to every year and sharing their artwork. In Mongolia, we have a partner, Tunga Kukendu, who started the Nomadic Nature Chunk program, which is a traveling classroom in a box that visits families all over rural Mongolia to talk about the web of life, as you see on the right-hand side here, and the importance of biodiversity in this high mountain ecosystem. And what's really neat about this is through the land of the snow leopard, Tunga had won an award as a Disney Conservation Hero back in 2015 for her work in Mongolia. And at an annual LOSL gathering, they decided to expand this work by training all the country coordinators in the lessons so that they can in turn train teachers within their regions, and then the teachers will work with the students. And these lessons are super fun and interactive. They have lots of activities and fun games. And I would be happy to share these handbooks with you if you're interested, because they're really fun. And I wish I had education like this when I was a kid. And it really promotes a lot of pride and, fun activities that make conservation really delightful and memorable. And I'm really proud of the whole Land of the Snow Leopard network. And I'm proud to say in 2020, they received a Disney Conservation Hero Award for this work and the expansion of the Nomadic Nature Trunk program. And the next step for this program is really involving more lessons on cultural and spirituality, in addition to all the ecological lessons that it already includes. And it's pretty phenomenal. I'm very excited about what's next for this network. And over in Pakistan, our partners are working really hard to engage both kids and girls in snow leopard conservation through activities at the Snow Leopard Day Festival, and also in their work working with herding families on preventing conflict. And they've worked in this area for over 15 years now and have stable snow leopard populations because the work that they're doing there. And these kids have become real activists, and their next steps are really providing supplemental opportunities for girls in secondary education that they would not have otherwise. And this amazing group, the Baltistan Wildlife Conservation Development Organization, just won a pretty incredible award for this work. So we're very proud of all of that they're doing and making a big difference for conservation. And then last but not least, over in Nepal, our partner Anil Adhikari has done a wonderful job engaging kids in Snow Leopard Day festivals and creating curriculum for 7th and 8th grade students. And he's done this in over, 12 schools throughout snow leopard landscapes in Nepal, and really engaging kids and getting them excited about involving in conservation. And, it's hard to, other than doing pre and post evaluation of the curriculum, it's hard to show the impact of these programs, but a long-term impact is that we are seeing kids that go through these programs become conservationists in their home regions, such as Suraj here on the left and Searing on the right, and they have become conservationists in their hometown of Dalpa in Shepaksundo in Nepal. And so planting seeds and working with students and working with kids in conservation often takes a while to see the impact, but they definitely influence their families and help promote the protection of snow leopards. So thank you so much for joining us today, and please feel free to connect with us. We also have a Snow Leopard Champions page on our Facebook, which gets kids from all over the globe involved in conservation and promoting things that they can do from wherever they're at in the world to help snow leopards. So thank you very much. And now I will turn it over to Rosamira, who's going to talk about on the other side of the planet in the forests of Northern Colombia, a fuzzy little monkey, and what her amazing team at Proyecto Tití is doing to engage kids in conservation. So thank you so much. Over to you, Rosamira.
Thank you very much, Ashleigh. It's great work, and there's so much connectivity also among our approaches and our ways to connect new generations with our wildlife conservation efforts. I will be sharing my screen with you. So we're going to go from one fuzzy animal to another fuzzy animal in the other side of the planet, and just a little hotter than in Mongolia and this side of the world. The cotton-top tamarins are cute little guys that live on this amazing green lush forest in northern Colombia, the tropical dry forest. And, you know, besides the size difference, they're very similar like us humans, because they live in family groups just like we do. They're very territorial and very protective of their home and their family, just like we are. They have a very sophisticated communication system like us humans do. Well, they feed from what they find in their environment, and where kids learn, I mean, babies learn everything from their parents, just like we do. And they leave home or get kicked out of the house, just like it happens with us humans. And just those similarities are a great tool to connect kids, you'll see later on, to connect them with cotton-top tamarins and the importance of protecting this little monkey. There's a couple of things that I want to highlight today, and it one's to the fact that out of our big planet, that little red dot, it's the only place on Earth you will find cotton-top tamarins in the wild, and not even in the whole country of Colombia. Only in that little black spot that you see in the north region of Colombia. That's it. So they are very unique and, you know, 100% Colombian. But unfortunately, like many other wildlife species, are facing quite, significant challenges to survive. And it's mostly related to deforestation, which happens due to cattle ranching, agriculture, or selective logging, or domestic uses of wood and forest resources. And very sadly, the hunting of cotton tops for the pet trade, which is basically putting cotton tops in the verge of extinction. We estimate there's about 7,000 cotton tops in the wild, but only in less than 8% of the forest that used to cover that green blanket that used to cover the northern region of Colombia, it's down to less than 8%. And that is why they are considered a critically endangered species. Then Proyecto Tití is solely, with the sole mission of protecting cotton tops, securing a long-term future for this little monkey and for their forest home. And we do have 4 pillars that support our mission, which is field research. We've been doing this for a long time, learning a lot about this little monkey. Of course, forest protection and restoration, because it's the main threat for the monkeys. But then there's a whole social component to our project that includes working with adults to provide income alternatives that are not related to using forest resources. And what gathers us here today to talk about our education programs that, with the mission of engaging the new generation of Colombians to learn, understand, and protect, and join us in protecting cotton-top tamarins for the future. And basically, our intention is to create cotton-top tamarin-friendly communities. And what we call a cotton-top tamarin-friendly community is a community that does not hunt, harass, keep, or sells cotton tops as pets. And that is the main message of our education programs, because we feel it is something where kids can make a difference or can have an impact by communicating this to their families, and by becoming responsible citizens, in understanding the challenges of wildlife and the importance for us humans to protect our resources. So our education programs are basically developed in these 3 regions where we work in northern Colombia. The blue, red, and green circles are the areas where we have field work, and it's usually around forest protected areas that have cotton-top tamarins in them. So we're basically working with communities around these protected areas to avoid hunting cotton tops or damaging the last few forest remnants. You can see the green blobs in this map. That's it. That's the only forest we have left. So we really need to take care of this and, of course, work in expanding and connecting these forests. But our education programs are basically designed as a pyramid, as you can see. So there is a wide base where our intention is to increase knowledge. So we want everybody to know that cotton tops are only Colombian, and then they're critically endangered. But we also want kids to learn how they can, change attitudes and go to the next level of understanding and not discouraging and not wanting to have a cotton top as a pet. And then a third level, it's like the narrower part of the pyramid is kids or teenagers that really want to do something about it. They want to they become active in conservation, and that's our Tití Leaders program. So I'll briefly go over each of these programs just to let you know what focus we have for each. So of course, Tití Kids is for the younger ones in elementary school. It's all around a puppet show with a fun story. It's storytelling by puppet shows. And then that comes with games and dances and all sorts of fun things for the kid to connect them emotionally with this little monkey and the fact that it's only found in Colombia. Then for 7th graders, we have the Cartitilla program, which is a semester program in schools. We partner with local schools to deliver these programs every week. And that includes a visit to the forest, which is where we believe it's like the arrow to your heart, where they really connect emotionally, seeing the monkeys free in their own environment and understanding why it is important for them to be there and not in their houses. So the kids learn not only about cotton tops, but what's threatening their survival and what can I do about it. And besides having a fun day in the forest, it's amazing that they live very close to these forested areas and sometimes don't even know them or have visited them. So we give them that, field experience. How do we track the monkeys? How do we do research? How do we learn from the monkeys? And then, motivate action on their end to share the stories, to do their own puppet shows, to do their dances, to do their graphics, and share that information with their families and neighbors. And then the programs where we hope that kids change attitudes are a little more engaging. And this one is Wow. This one teaches kids how to train their dogs to do tricks, just very simple tricks, and encourage a good relationship with your domestic animal instead of the desire to have a monkey or a parrot as a pet in our home. Kids really have a lot of fun and understand that their dogs are very smart and that that encourages a better relationship with your domestic pet, which here in Colombia, unfortunately, in these rural areas, are not very well treated regularly. And then the top of our pyramid is the Tití Champions and Tití Leaders program, where kids do their own campaigns in their community, being a mural where they send a conservation message, or a recycling campaign, or planting trees. All of these programs have a pre and post evaluation, and you can see here the significant difference where kids learn to classify, understand that there's wild animals and domestic animals, and then that knowledge is evidenced through this pre and post evaluation, so that we can confirm that kids are getting the message, at least knowledge-wise. And then, of course, we see, just as Ashleigh was sharing, how proud we feel when we see kids like Nelson, who started when he was 13 years old in our programs. And he recently, he has, been with us for 10 years, engaging, being a volunteer, working with us at sometimes. And now he was awarded a Disney Conservation Hero Award, and he's now going to college to get an environmental education degree and help protect wildlife in Colombia. He's been working with us up until August, because he's going to go back to school after the pandemic. And he's been learning how to track monkeys with Jason here, and how to take notes and how to communicate that information to students. And of course, we have many more stories. And here's Maria Angelica, just graduated from a biology degree inspired by Proyecto Tití. And Anna also got a technical degree in resource management and is working with us. And Rosita, she used to be, Nelson's classmate. And now she's one of our teachers that goes into these communities and teaches everything she learned and she has lived through with cotton top tamarin. So it's the long-term impact that we are looking for in the creation of leaders and young individuals that really want to make a difference and want to carry on this message and these programs. And of course, the pandemic came, and then that taught us to be very creative, and we ended up coming with many different new strategies while we couldn't go into any of the schools for 2 years. Now, thankfully, we're back in the classroom, but we did a new puppet show, a traveling puppet show that has allowed us to reach many, many more audiences in towns where we were not working, schools where we were not working, with our conservation message that cotton tops are not pets. Doing a lot of arts and crafts activities, some remote, some in person, with smaller groups of kids, just kind of like highlight their beautiful tops of cotton tops, a radio show, and even a dance challenge here that I dared to learn from my daughter as well. I'm not going to let that too long. But it was just different ways to engage our communities while we went all through such a hard time as it was the 2 years of pandemic and being away from schools. And I want to highlight, the energy, that energy that you see in this picture for our teachers, our educators, is really what they transmit to kids and communities. Energy, happiness, and just joy of learning and helping us to protect cotton tamarins, and everyone in our team for that matter. Thank you very much. There's more information there if you want to connect with us later on, and I would be very happy to take your questions now.
See, I remembered the mute button this time. Fantastic job, ladies. Thank you both so much for bringing us into your world of education and all of the things that you're doing to engage the communities around the conservation action that is needed to save these species. We've had a couple of good questions in the chat. So before I dive into those, though, I just want to remind people you can put questions in the chat. You can pop them in the Q&A. We've got Rosamira and Ashleigh here who are the experts in this field. So would love to hear from them and would love to hear what you want to know. Let's start with you, Ashleigh. Christina had asked, there was a picture that says it looks like that snow leopard killed several yaks. Why more than one at a time?
Oh, that's a great question. I didn't mention it during the presentation, but so in a normal situation with the snow leopard hunting wild prey, when they would see a herd, they would pick out an animal in the herd and go for that animal, and then the whole herd would disperse and they would capture one animal and eat it. But in a domestic livestock situation, when they're in an enclosure and the cat can get in even through a small aperture, the livestock can't escape. And so unfortunately, what happens with snow leopards is it triggers this predator response that they will kill multiple animals. And often this can result in what we call a mass depredation incident, when over the course of a night, if a herder is not there attentively watching their livestock, a snow leopard can take out all the goats or sheep or young yak in one whole enclosure. And this causes, extreme economic and emotional hardship for the herders. It is unique to snow leopards in that if they get into an enclosure, they will kill everything until they all stop moving. And this causes, this leads to conflict as it wipes out, the herder's complete bank account and without other solutions. So we really focus on protecting those enclosures to keep livestock safe, as well as, keeping the predators safe from coming in.
That's great. I think that's one of the most fascinating things. It's just that reflex that they have, and how, again, simple solutions can cause or can help mitigate really complex problems. Speaking of which, Debbie's asking, you had mentioned a type of light that you put out to keep predators away. Can you say more about that?
Yeah, sure. So this is an innovation from an Australian farmer named Ian Wallen, and they're called fox lights. So they were created to protect herds in Australia from foxes. And it's the main predator in Australia. And so how it works is it's a solar powered, real lightweight, small device that can be placed on top of a stick or a post. And it emits light that ranges up to about a mile. or two. And so if they're placed correctly, it causes, just the snow leopard doesn't want to go at night where it can be seen. They're very elusive. Their nickname goes to the mountains for a reason. They're hardly ever seen by people. And so this light prevents them from coming near livestock and attacking them. But there is, of course, habituation that can happen with the fox lights. The cats do, become trained to see it as an easy food source if they're not used with other protection methods. So typically, we're actually trialing some solar powered electric fences around some of the corrals, as well as a low cost alternative, because it's very expensive to get wire mesh to enclose a full corral up to 20,000 feet altitude in these villages. So we're looking always at alternative solutions that are low cost and locally available. But the fox lights have been working if they're used correctly, but it requires our partners to visit the communities and make sure that they're maintaining them and that they're being used correctly, which includes rotating them and appropriate placement. But they're awesome, low cost solutions. So they are working. We just need to get more out there.
As with any of these low tech things, it's a balance, right?
Mm.
Rosamira, kind of swapping over to cotton tops for a minute. Diana's asking if golden lion tamarins are equally as threatened as the cotton tops, and if they're found in the same areas of Colombia.
Golden lion tamarins?
Mm-hmm.
Golden lion tamarins are only found in Brazil, in the Atlantic forest, so very close to Rio de Janeiro. And they're also endemic from the region. So they're similar in the fact that they are endemic species, very restricted distribution areas, and very, very significant threats related to deforestation and hunting for the pet trade. To the fact that which one is more beautiful, we've been having these discussions with the golden lion tamarin folks for a long time. We have not come to an agreement, so their color is certainly beautiful, but the hairs of cotton tops are nicer, are more attractive. So, but yeah, we have had long-term collaboration with the golden lion tamarin friends in Brazil, with sharing strategies, exchanging ideas, and actually we visited them and they visited us as well, but we wanted to learn about their reforestation efforts, and some of what we learned we're applying now to our forest conservation efforts here in Colombia.
That's great. Really important to share those ideas. It's one of the best things about the network, right?
Yes, exactly.
That are doing what you're doing.
Exactly.
Conservation can be a very lonely field. So it's nice to have others that you can bounce ideas off of that are dealing with some of the same issues.
Yes.
Speaking about the cotton tops as pets and the pet trade and sort of how we've lost populations to captivity, can you talk a little bit about, are they kept as pets in Colombia? Are they caught and sold as pets for other regions? Where do we see that happening?
Actually, the reason why they became endangered in the early 70s was because in the 60s, they were massively exported from Colombia to the United States for biomedical research associated to colon cancer. And all those animals, the bibliography says there was up to 30,000 cotton tops that were exported from Colombia. I'm not sure if legally or illegally, probably not that legally, but that's why they became endangered. And then after that, its exportation legally or illegally was prohibited. And then the issue became more that the extensive deforestation that got their habitat down to a very minimum. Right now, the traffic is within our country, within different regions of our country. People hunt them to sell them, like on the main highways where people go from one place to another, and they sell them as a way to generate an income. So you have people hunting them to keep them as pets just for the fun of it. You have people hunting them to sell them and generate an income for that, but it's mostly local traffic or nationwide traffic. And all those animals that went to the States back then ended up in zoos. And that's why cotton top tamarins are a very popular zoo animal, because they are, kept in captivity and they reproduce well in captivity. And right now, I think the approximate number of cotton tops in zoos around the whole planet, it's about 1,700. When you compare to 7,000 in the wild, that's a significant number. It's a good genetic reserve for cotton tops, but of course, it's not the ideal numbers that we want to have much more in the wild.
Yeah, absolutely. Something else that you guys are both working on besides the education piece is sort of this idea of corridors for wildlife. And Diana's asking that mentioning she saw a program on TV about snow leopards and a gentleman that was trying to establish protective corridors to protect them from mining operations. Has that type of conflict been included in your education programs? Are you talking about forest connectivity and those kinds of things in your education programs? And let's start with Ashleigh on that one.
Sure. Yeah. So the snow leopard's range is so large, ranging all throughout Central and South Asia, over 12 countries, from the Altai Mountains in the north through the Pamiri Mountains in the west, down through all the Himalaya. So under the, we actually have an initiative which includes the 12 governments of all the snow leopard countries, snow leopard range countries. It's called the Global Snow Leopard Ecosystem and Protection Program. And it's a united effort to bring together the governments and organizations working together on snow leopard conservation and research and on making sure that we secure 23 snow leopard viable landscapes by the year 2023, which is right around the corner. And, there was a significant delay in that given the challenges with the pandemic, and unfortunately now due to socio-political issues with the war in Russia and Ukraine. But connectivity is absolutely important. We see mining activity, unsustainable development, big beltway access between China and Europe is underway, border fences. There are many disruptions, within the range to snow leopard mobility and connectivity. And it is an absolute, priority to make sure that we keep these populations connected, because once they become, disconnected, then they just become islands. And unfortunately, that's when the gene pool, reduces and they're more susceptible to disease and extinction in local areas. So it's very important to work with protected areas, but also unprotected areas outside those parks and landscapes to make sure that we have connectivity. So we do have partners that work in unprotected areas such as Rinsen Lama. He works in the Humla district, which is in the northwestern part of Nepal. And that's a very important corridor between India and Pakistan and Nepal. So it is a priority, but there are lots of priorities, and our focus right now is on really mitigating human wildlife conflict and really promoting local guardianship of the frontline communities living with snow leopards. So we've been doing some mapping of with GIS to look at where these connections and corridors are. And really, I would like to focus on that over the next several years, is really trying to target efforts between those landscapes where we're working to ensure that we keep connectivity. It's an absolute priority. It was a really good question.
Yeah, and Rosamira, for you guys, I know that you're working a ton on this with land purchase and your nurseries, which is fantastic. Maybe you can talk a little bit about how your tree planting is going, what that looks like, and also how you can stop the logging of current forests.
Yeah, so for us, connectivity is key because cotton tops are arboreal animals. They never come down to the ground because they become too vulnerable to their natural predators. So besides deforestation, the issue is fragmentation. So like the island concept that Ashleigh was mentioning before. So our work has focused over the last 10 years in not only protecting the forest areas, but connecting them by creating corridors in farmers' land. So if we own the land, perfect, we'll just fill it in with trees. But if it's on a private property, then we make a conservation agreement with this landowner, and they agree to set aside a portion of their land so that we can connect to forest fragments. They allow us to come and plant trees and monitor those trees, and they get benefits to increase their productivity or to diversify their production and, of course, increase their income and their welfare. The program is doing great. It's growing significantly thanks to WCN and every one of you who's been supporting. So we do have local staff that we hire, people from the community that help us collect seeds, germinate the seeds, propagate the saplings. And then when the rains come, then we come and plant all those saplings in the areas where we need to bring back the forest. And then we monitor that, so we guarantee that it's becoming a forest over time. And all those efforts are a big part of our focus on forest conservation and restoration. And there's many opportunities to get engaged in that. And actually, next year, after COVID season, we expect to bring kids back into the forest, and we are hoping to incorporate a tree planting session when they come to see the monkeys, and so that they can leave their legacy there, and that connection becomes stronger. Now that we have our own reserve, then we're able to provide that opportunity to students, and then of course to the Tití leaders, which are very actively developing programs to help. That's it's key, and we're doing it in a small scale, but our hope, just like Ashleigh, is to go to a regional scale and develop larger corridors and restore them, so that in the long term we can have healthy forests that are interconnected for cottontails and wildlife altogether.
That's great. That's great. A really great question from Dorothy here, which I think might touch on some of your education stuff more formally, is we know that a lot of environmental education happens informally, right? We're connecting with kids in the communities and things like that. But Rosamira, a lot of your work happens within the schools. Mm-hmm. So how do you engage teachers and ministers of education in teaching conservation? How do you bring that into the schools?
It's a great thing that Colombian education law requires schools, public and private, and teachers to develop environmental education programs. And sometimes they don't have too many resources or too many ideas on what else to do. And here we come with this program that can teach their kids to protect an endemic Colombian species. And they always welcome that outside support, which is great for us. It gives us the opportunity to contribute to the education and the school. And then the teachers also get a break from their requirements that the Ministry of the Education demands from them. So it was a good opportunity for us. And that's why we developed these relationships and formal agreements actually with the schools. The teachers give us hours within their daily classes, and we go into the schools and develop our programs and share evaluations with them. And we train teachers as well. Before we start our programs, we train the teachers to let them know what is it that their kids are going to learn and how that fills in their requirements to comply with the law. So that has been a great opportunity for us in that sense.
That's great. Ashleigh, any thoughts from you on that one?
Yeah, that's I can piggyback on what Rosamira was saying, in that we have a similar approach in doing teacher training so that they're able to train other teachers and expand programs in that way, such as the nomadic nature trunk expansion. That initially had to be translated into 5 different languages and adapting to different wildlife living in each of those regions, as there are slight differences in each of those high mountain ecosystems. So it was supposed to be done in person. Tungo was supposed to go and train each of the country coordinators and work with the teachers, but because of COVID, we were grounded. And so she adapted all those lessons to virtual lessons, all 25 of those lessons. And then they were translated, and then the coordinators learned those lessons and then trained their teachers in their respective countries, as well as, them training other teachers. And that's how it scales up. In Nepal, for example, there's, SLC's had a large focus on education for the last, since its inception in 2000, so for over 20 years. And we've seen these programs be very influential in schools because they don't have the curriculum to provide on environmental or conservation education. So they're quite receptive to, the teachers are very receptive to incorporating these supplemental lessons on snow leopard conservation and other biodiversity. And our partner Anil in Nepal has done a wonderful job working right, in the communities, the priority communities of herders and families living in snow leopard habitats, but also working in schools in the cities, because kids, have, like in Kathmandu or in Ulaanbaatar in Mongolia, kids, have they're influential people in their families that work in government, so we've also expanded from the rural areas to some of the capital cities to expand those program opportunities. And our goal would be to get them incorporated into larger national curriculum. And it's, we're working with the government, particularly in Nepal, on getting that incorporated into national curriculum under the Department of Education.
For sure. I think we often forget how powerful children can be in these situations. And I often point to the recycling movement in the US really came from kids in schools and kids taking that home to their parents and saying, this is important. This is something we need to do for the future. So, kids are looking at the future of the planet. And I think you guys are both doing a great job of engaging their minds in what activities they need to do. Taking a little bit of a step back more towards the beginning of the pandemic, and if you guys could talk about, Rosamira, what precautions did you take to keep cotton tamarin safe? Was COVID a concern for them? Was this something we were worried about them catching, or for your staff? So if you could just talk a little bit about how you guys approached that in the beginning.
Yes, right at the beginning, we suspended field work just because of the uncertainty of how could that affect cotton tops. We stayed in touch with the primatology community, and there was a recommendation to stop field work until we kind of figured out what were the risks. But right after, time went by, and what we did was just follow all safety instructions and recommendations with, going in without a mask, no touching, not even, not 2 feet from the animals either. I mean, not that we get that close, but just to avoid and just do our work in a very distant way, or more distant than usual. And we did that for a long time. And fortunately, and I don't think there has been done much research on that, but we haven't seen any evidence that potentially can damage cotton tops. But that's how we managed. We suspended field work for a while. And then when we did that, we tried to use all biosafety recommendations. And then with schools, we tried virtual, and Ashleigh was sharing how, but in these rural communities, no internet, one computer for the whole family, or a cell phone. So we had to really, that's why we jumped into all these other alternative strategies that ended up opening up doors that we hadn't explored before. So it's actually a good opportunity to look through a different lens.
That's why we have closer looks, right?
Exactly.
We're all here, sitting here today.
Yes, exactly.
Take advantage. Ashleigh, anything you want to add about snow leopards and pandemic?
Yeah, similarly, we, had to stop field programs as well, because many partners, were everybody was in lockdown throughout the world for the first year. And a lot of the, the communities were quite vulnerable because they lacked resources, medical resources, hospitals. Like in Narfu Valley of Nepal, there's the closest hospital is in Kathmandu. People would have to be airlifted down there in case of an emergency. So partners, were able to continue, moving forward with programs as best possible. But the education program, as I mentioned, with the nomadic nature trunks, that's why we switched to the virtual trainings, which did help. But the schools were closed in Nepal, so the education snow leopard school curriculum that Anil developed had to wait to be implemented in schools till they reopened, and then with associated precautions with wearing masks, and then there were subsequent closures. So it was a very fluid situation with lots of adaptation of activities, and working with our partners on advising how best to try to move forward as keep the fanning the coals, and so to speak, to make sure programs keep going. But it was a very interesting time. And, I'm not sure how many people are aware on this call, but snow leopards can actually contract COVID. We've seen this in zoological facilities, even with keepers wearing personal protective equipment, such as N95 masks. Snow leopards have contracted COVID in close contact with people. So a lot of the recommendations were really in conflict situations, reiterating to just release the cat, no contact, no capturing, and really limit that activity and interaction if there is any, which is pretty rare for there to be, but just in precautionary measures to protect the cat, because they are quite susceptible to the virus, unfortunately, which we're still learning about.
Still so much to learn.
Mhm.
Kind of just a quick related question that I think you're probably the best person on the planet to ask this question of, Ashleigh, is can you give us the snow leopard number in zoos and in the wild, much as we heard that there were about 1,700 cotton-top tamarins in zoos and about 7,000 in the wild?
Sure, I can give you an estimate. You know, it's been a couple years now since I've seen those numbers, but about 2 years ago, the numbers in zoos that were accredited by the North American Association for Zoos and Aquaria here in North America were about 130 snow leopards in zoos that were involved in the species survival program. So that's the conservation breeding program. And then about the same, maybe a little bit more, 150 in the European Association of Zoos and Aquaria, which encompasses Europe and Russia as well, Eurasia. And so there's a small, just because of the requirements of living, you know, trying to incorporate species that are appropriate for, you know, the zoo's climate. Typically, those are the two regions where there are snow leopards in managed care. There are snow leopards that are coming into holding facilities, unfortunately, due to increasing conflict, like in Ladakh, India. And so that's an area of you know, opportunity to work on prevention and training of, you know, government staff that to make sure we have, you know, rescued and in rehabilitation protocols to keep as many cats in the wild. But I think, you know, there's 300 or less globally would be my closest estimate.
And
And then you know, the numbers, you know, it's very difficult to assess the population in the wild because of the vast, you know, inaccessible range, but there is a large initiative through the GSLIP, the Global Snow Leopard Ecosystem Protection Program, to assess the world's snow leopards. It's called a PAWS initiative. And so that will help us understand how many there are, but our best guess is about 3,500 to 7,000 individual cats in the wild. So very few, but they do live in such remote places that, and to some extent, it does help their conservation. But the mountain landscapes are also the first to seeing effects of climate change. So there's a, you know, a lot of challenges yet, but I hope to have a better estimate for you by next year.
It's not one thing, it's another, right?
Yeah.
One last quick question from David about the snow leopard situation in Afghanistan, and if there's a prognosis, and has the political landscape deteriorated? Has that affected populations?
Oh, that's a very good question. We have not been, Snow Leopard Conservancy has not been active in Afghanistan. I know that Wildlife Conservation Society was working there, but unfortunately they had to pull out, you know, for over the last year now. And so I hope to better understand the situation in a couple months when I go to the GSLIP meetings in Kyrgyzstan, and they'll be reporting out on national action plans and progress. But no doubt that, you know, limited scarce resources for conservation have been diverted because of war and socio-political instability in Afghanistan, as well as in Russia. And even the effects, our partners are feeling it in Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan, you know, associated effects because of just, you know, little resources and being deterred toward more urgent priorities at the moment. Yeah. Urgent national priorities.
Speaking of priorities, I have just a few minutes left, but I'd love to hear from each of you. What do you need? How can this audience help snow leopards and cotton-top tamarins and your education programs, and really help you build for the future of these species and the people that live with them?
Well, on our end for the cute monkeys, there's always we want to continuously expand our programs and reach new communities, especially now that we have a traveling puppet show, like a traveling conservation program that we can take to many other places. So there's always a need to support coming to new communities, engaging new kids into that, and of course the booklets and the materials that we use for our semester program. We want to keep them going every year, and our numbers are about 2,000 kids that we reach out to in these 3 areas every year. And supporting that would be amazing from you guys. If you're interested, of course, we can share more information later. But yes, we're always needed that. And if you want to get involved also with our forest restoration program, it can help us plant trees. You can help us protect forests, which are those main priorities that we're focusing on, so that we can secure a future for the cute little guys. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And it's similar to for SLC, we are trying to expand, our partners want to expand the education programs. And so that, we do need continued funding year to year to keep these programs going and expanding. So, the Snow Leopard Day festivals we're hoping to expand those as well in Nepal, as well as the education curriculum. And there's, a lot of opportunity to do so. We just, are working with funding to do that. So thank you so much for, your support. We really appreciate it. And our partners, it helps us, work with our partners in local communities to save snow leopards.
Great. Thank you both for your incredible work and for your incredible teams that are out there working. I've met Anil and your education experts and Nelson, and these people really are our future, and you guys inspire them on a daily basis. So thank you for all you do to support them and support their efforts in supporting our future generations to save these resources that we're all so passionate about. I just want to thank all of you for being with us today. It's been great to have you. Megan has put the link in the chat for where you can find previous closer looks. If you've missed some, you can go to the YouTube channel and check them out there. She's also pasted the donate links for Snow Leopard Conservancy and Proyecto Tití. And if you'd like to help advance their conservation action and support those education programs, we would be deeply appreciative. I hope you'll all join us for our next closer look, which is coming up with Sam Williams and the Macaw Recovery Network, which most of you know will be entertaining to say the least. That is on September 23rd, and there's a register link for that in the chat as well. Finally, I'll say that if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to Megan, myself, Rosamira, Ashleigh. We're here to connect you with the conservation that you care about, and really that's where we're going to move the needle. So thank you all for being here today. I hope you'll continue to be a part of the conversation and let us know if we can help you with that in any way.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kelly.
Take care.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.